Welcome to the special episode of Behind the Scenes in Real Estate. Today we're going beyond buildings, beyond bricks and mortar. We'll be exploring the inspirations and challenges of a person who could be considered one of the leading Auckland developers. Our guest today is Mark Todd, the founder of Auckland Residential, a name synonymous with reshaping Auckland's urban landscape. Joining him today is Steve Hood, who's had a long-term association with Mark and is also a well-known identity at Barfoot & Thompson Remuera. So sit back and join us as we go behind the scenes in the life and work of Mark and Steve. Mark, a little known fact about you was that you are on the path to becoming a meteorologist and that you've been offered a cadetship and you actually turned it down. Now, that was a pretty bold move, especially at your age. Tell me what made you make that move and what did your family think about it?
Yeah, well, looking back, it was a sliding doors moment, I suppose, Carolyn. I got accepted into this program. It's a postgraduate program down in Victoria University with Met Service, and so I got accepted, and then I went away on holiday for 3 months during the summer waiting for the program to start and changed my mind. So I'm not really, I couldn't put my finger on a specific thing. I just, bit of intuition really, and I decided not to turn up to that course. And then I ended up actually labouring and doing odd jobs really for 3 or 4 years after that. Yeah. So I just felt like I'd been on a education train through high school, through university, and I don't know, I just had enough of learning for a while. In retrospect, I probably could have carried on learning, but
And did your family support you with that decision?
Oh, yeah, mum and dad have always been pretty hands off. They were, I was the first, both mum and dad left school before, in the fourth form and fifth form respectively, I think. So, I was the first to get to university. So they've always been pretty good, respected my decisions. Although I did exasperate mum for many years in my 20s until I got a job.
So you went labouring. What then sort of sparked you onto the property development side of business?
Well, primarily I was always wanted to be self-employed so I could surf as much as possible. That was a big driver. So funnily enough, I've never had a job. I've only ever been self-employed since I graduated. So that's probably quite unusual. But I really wanted flexibility, and I did a little bit of travelling for 3 months, after that summer in Australia. Came back, I went to Indonesia, and then came back and painted someone's house, did a good job, and the next person says, can you paint my house? And then 3.5 years later, I'd spent painting houses by myself. I call them the lost years, but plenty of time to think, which is good for a while. It can get a bit dangerous, too much time to think. And then probably just another ad hoc moment. My brother came back from London. He's actually a builder. He started helping me doing painting and renovating. So we did small renovations for a couple of years. And in 1997, we approached 4 banks and we did our first spec house together. So I sort of had to ease my way into property development via that way, painting and decorating, renovations, and then building one house at a time as a spec builder.
It's only a good apprenticeship.
Yeah, we did everything.
Did you have actually anyone guiding you through that way, or did you always have this sort of entrepreneurial streak?
No, just self-taught, I suppose. And so I often get asked, I'm always very encouraging of people that want to start any business. I think the biggest barrier to business is people being too afraid to try, which is kind of a corollary of being afraid to fail, I think. I think getting stuck in. I have this vacuous statement that I place a lot of weight in, which is most people never do anything because they don't do anything. It is a tautology, but that's the key, is just giving things a go. And I've learned a lot by trial and error. I've made a bucket load of mistakes and I've never finished a building or a project that I wouldn't change again. But the important thing is just to start and learn and be well-intentioned, I think.
I think that's the key, isn't it? It's actually just starting, putting the line in the sand and I'm going to do this.
Yeah. I think that it's also very important, and this is all in retrospect, after 25 years, but having good intentions to do better or lead or make the world a better place. I think that's really important in business. Being profitable's, it's if you're not profitable, you ain't going to be in business very, very long, but it's not a very interesting proposition. I think all the best businesses change the world in some respect.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, because you've actually mentioned before that money doesn't drive you, and you're obviously very much about giving back to the community of Auckland. So we'd like to hear more about that.
Yeah, I can remember a moment when I was at university, because I studied mathematics and philosophy. As I got more and more into my study, I just dropped all the practical subjects, and I loved doing theory. And I remember specifically one time sitting in a big lecture theatre, well into my degree, and 100 students in the class, and you've got a highly skilled, associate professor teaching you, some abstract ideas about language, truth and meaning, or something like that. And that's a pretty, you're building on 2,500 years of academic knowledge and respect for learning, and we live in a society and a culture that's got institutions and a tax system and a social order that could provide that education. But it's also, I just remember feeling the privilege of that, even though I hadn't done anything with it. This is amazing. This is 2,500 years of progress to be sitting here, and that we've got a culture and society that values learning so much. So that sort of realisation has always stayed with me, and as I've been able to contribute, I think it's really important to give back to our communities, and locally in particular. And then if you can do more than that, then why not?
Can you, while we're on this subject, can you talk to us a bit about the Auckland Collective? Because that's very much based about, obviously, the principles you've just talked about, sort of encouraging and supporting critical thinkers, people in the arts world. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I actually, I couldn't find too much information, so I was really quite keen on knowing about it.
Yeah, the Auckland Collective's been running for as long as Auckland now, so it's 15 years old. So we set up a registered charity the same year we set up Auckland. My best mate Benjamin Preston and I, and we were sort of both in mid-career when we started Auckland, and to a certain extent, again, it's just sort of a midlife crisis kind of response, because you're looking for a purpose in life, or well, I hope you are. You want to do your best you can. Benjamin and I were both a bit frustrated. We'd both been successful students, and particularly Benjamin had done well as an international banker. I'd done modestly well as a small-time property developer. But you just look at the world and you could do things better. And so we just didn't want to make the mistake if they once made $1 million, we're going to do this X, Y, or Z. We set up the Auckland Collective with the express purpose to give back to our communities, particularly around education and the arts, from day one. And it was a bit of an ad hoc decision at the time, but in retrospect, it's been very beneficial to our brand. So from a commercial point of view, it's been super successful. But again, that's all in 2020's hindsight.
Yeah.
The original purpose was basically to make ourselves better about our lives in the world, to trying to do something. It's a bit of a cliche having a charitable foundation or something, but one of the huge benefits of it's also been it's opened many doors getting involved in philanthropy and charity, and I've met so many interesting people through that journey, and it ultimately led us to sponsoring the New Zealand Book Awards. And I've got a strong interest in the visual arts, particularly painting now, which I wouldn't have probably had if I hadn't met the people through the doors that opened for me. So it's been a win-win-win, just getting involved with the community. It creates networks, and it's really easy to get bogged down in work and stress and worry, and you sort of forget about those valuable connections that you make by getting involved and giving back. I
have to say, it's pretty impressive. Not many people would actually consider starting a business, and then at the same time actually think, we're actually going to give back as well, because you're usually just so focused on one area. So that's pretty impressive.
Well,
it shows that it's quite intrinsic into it's your core values.
Yeah, I'd like to think I'm values driven. It's rather as the judge, but I've always felt to a certain extent, a bit like an observer in society, and I look out there and I'm just going, why is things done like this? Or it could be a bit better or more vibrant or a bit more fun or a bit more egalitarian, or, here's another way to solve the same problem. It's actually a win-win-win situation rather than a win-lose. So I suppose that big thing, I'm a big believer in that the world's not a zero-sum game.
Yeah.
The best societies, everyone wins.
Yeah. I think before it became sort of the catchphrase, what I'm hearing is that you've always had that real curiosity about life and about people. So
yeah.
I have to say, again, pretty impressive. Would you agree, Steve?
Totally. I mean, you've always had people's interest at heart. That's you. You love life, and that inspires you to just create really awesome projects that people can love and enjoy.
Yeah.
It's true.
We'll take the pressure off you a bit now, Mark. How's that?
Yes, good.
Steve,
No saint, that's for sure.
Steve, I've known you for 12 years, so I know your journey, but a lot of people wouldn't know where you started, what sort of got you into real estate, and what drives you. So can you give us a little bit of insight into you, Mr. Hood?
Okay. Well, I left school, sixth form, and then I went to Pacific Steel, working for Fletcher's as a cadet. And I worked there for 7 years, and I had a couple of really great jobs, and Fletcher's even offered to pay for me to do an accounting degree. And I thought about it long and hard. But at the same time, I had this urge or desire to travel. I think it's just that Kiwi dream, but like Mark's brother Carl, and you to an extent too. So I packed it in, and I had a house. I had a lovely partner. We were all happy. But I just had to go. I don't know, it was crazy. So unfortunately, our relationship split. We sold the house, and I gave him a notice, and then I just went travelling. I had a one-way ticket and a bunch of mates in London, and I went there. And
how long were you travelling for?
Well, I was away for 12 years in total.
Oh, wow.
And when I left, I had a backpack and a little bit of money. And during my travel process, I met my wife. We ended up living in London. And part of the reason I might have gone into real estate was because I formed this relationship with these two property developers in London. And I set up a little landscaping company there, as Kiwis do. And they engaged me to do work on their projects. And they inspired me to buy a house and then flip it. So we started flipping in London, and it was highly profitable and a lot of fun. So we did a couple of houses. That was back in the 90s, and property values were just doubling. So it was very fortunate for us, and we got on board at the right time. And got to a point we had 2 kids in London, but the cost of living and just the change in our lifestyle, with me now not being single, free, pubbing, I had to be responsible. The decision was made, do we stay and struggle covering the bills in London, or come back to New Zealand? So that was a kicker. Kids, lifestyle, it wasn't hard. So we sold up and we came back to New Zealand. I sold my little landscape business, which was going very well. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And my wife saw an advert in the local paper for a real estate company whereby it was like a fast track program where you could go and do this course, and you'd walk out of there with experience of 3 years of an average agent. So I gave that a go, and I started real estate, and that was the start of my career, and never looked back from there. And I've been now selling for 25 years.
25 years.
Yep.
How long have you two known each other for?
25 years.
25 years. So is that, I'm going to take you back then, Mark, is that in the initial developments, you did some amazing buildings, which we still have the pleasure of selling now, 25 years later. In Ellerslie, you did some apartment blocks as well as some great townhouses in Mount Wellington. Is that how you both met? Was it during that time then?
Yeah, it was. Steve became our first regular real estate agent. We might have started, I think, 2 or 3 years before Steve, developing little townhouses.
Yeah.
And we hadn't really settled on a reliable, loyal agent, and we met Steve, and he virtually sold everything.
Yeah.
For 10 years for us, up until the GFC, when I transitioned into building apartment blocks.
Yeah.
I reckon it'd be probably close to about 100 houses over the years that we've
Maybe quite not that many, but
well,
it could be.
It would be close to it with on sales.
Yeah.
There's been a lot.
We just sold one recently again, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And
in Mount Wellington.
and now I mention your name in Ockham. They were built by the founder of Ockham. And that's credibility. That's huge now. Even going back essentially 25 years of homes developments, people identify you and your product, and it's a powerful tool.
Can you share with us, Mark, what took you on that transition from building standalone townhouses and the boutique apartment blocks, which are pretty inspiring on their day? I mean, I always sort of feel like it's got a Miami type feel.
Yeah.
It was ahead of the time, I have to say. What took you from building those to apartments and sort of changing the whole sort of landscape of Auckland design, really, for living?
It was a bit of a long process. It's just, again, it was basically just a learning process. So I've always thrown my hand at everything. So right from the beginning, as our very first sort of small townhouse development, I would always do the floor plans and elevations and get a draftsman to draw it up. So we did many townhouses and terraced houses and so forth in the first 10 years of property development, and I effectively designed them all myself, and got to know the unitary plan, or the Auckland, what was it called, the district plan actually, back in those days, back to front, and sort of became a bush designer, a bush planner, a bush, legal, I got to know the RMA pretty well. I got caught up in a few little battles around there. And just probably over a 10-year period, I just realised how inefficient some of the planning rules were, and how they actually encouraged poor use of scarce urban land. And also, ultimately, the planning rules at that time in the district plan, the phrase that I used to sum it up is that the rules economically precluded me delivering smaller, more affordable houses in most neighbourhoods. If you say you can build one house per 400 square metres, well, any existing urban environment, it's going to be a big house. And so you'll see in the 90s and zeros, you've just got 4 and 5 bedroom townhouses. And if it's in Panmure, it would have cost $1 million, and with Epsom, it would have cost $2.5 million, But you get no affordable units, so because of the density controls. And every new house needed 2 car parks. Well, that's a chicken and egg thing. If you legislate 10 new houses, 20 new car parks, what you're going to get is a street full of cars. So my transition into wanting better became from that sort of the mist or the clouds, having a clear view of what the issues were in our planning, and luckily the first 5 years of Ockham's inception from 2009 coincided with the Auckland plan, which is what we wanted, which was a quality compact city. And then the unitary plan that followed that, which was the new district plan rules, and we were heavily involved, I became heavily involved in some aspects of the policy, 2 in particular, getting rid of density controls. So now the only zone that's got density controls is the single house zone, so that's gone. You can, and the other one is getting rid of car parking standards, which are largely gone too, all the way down through. They're quite modest at the mixed housing urban level. There's no car parking standards for terraced housing in apartment or apartment zones, and that gives people the flexibility. We're onto our 5th zero car parking building. Not everyone does that, and still the vast majority of apartment blocks have car parking, but at least you can build in the appropriate locations, and I really enjoy leading the market in zero car park developments. I think location is very, very important if you care about, your carbon footprint, your travel times, your mental and economic health and well-being. I think it's a central issue that's often forgotten when we talk about healthy homes and green star buildings. Location is a key thing that's not often recognised. Where are we building houses? And that's something that I feel passionately about, and the more I've got into it, the more I am committed to creating vibrant cities with, great residential housing in locations that are high amenity, where you can walk to retail and hospitality and social amenity. You're close to parks. Why wouldn't you be close to water? That's one of my classic critiques that you see the last 40 years. Where's the top 10 places we're building houses? Drury. No sea out in Drury.
No sea.
Kumeu.
No transport either.
Silverdale.
True.
Albany, New Lynn, for example, all our main development nodes are miles from the ocean. Auckland's got 200 miles of seafront. It's nuts that we're not all living next to the sea. And so these are the sort of things that really get under my, light my wick. Just macro level stuff that's just, we should be living near the sea. We've got 3 of the greatest harbours in the world, Kaipara, Waitemata and the Manukau. And we're not building near the sea. That is nuts.
So Mark, your visionary mindset is often at odds with obviously government, but also a lot of community. How do you deal with that on a personal level? Because I said you've got these dreams, you've got these visions, you're about the future of Auckland. It's not just I'm going to build an apartment complex and that's it. That's going to take me 3 years and I'm going to move on and forget about it. You're building something for the community forever. How do you deal with some of the people that actually will challenge you and challenge your vision and fight, basically, I suppose, or resist against the change?
Probably my most challenging moments are not actually dealing with the communities and individuals, because you do strike people that don't want change in their neighbourhood or sometimes groups in neighbourhoods that don't want change. But I don't really have a chip on my shoulder with people that, these rules allow certain things and other things may be discretionary or non-complying. And if people want to stand up for what they want in their community, I don't really have an issue with that. Let's go to a hearing if that's the case. Probably my bigger issue and the thing that I find most demoralising are actually the institutions and bureaucracies that from time to time the culture just needs to be higher. They are the people that are meant to be responsible for planning and making Auckland a better city, a more vibrant city, a more transport-orientated city, a more dense city. And that's where the lack of ambition, and often that's where the hurdles and the things that crush your spirit occur. So my biggest battles aren't actually with individuals or communities, it's actually with institutions, regulation, the cultural attitude, of various arms of Auckland City Council have been really problematic to the point where, twice I've nearly given up property development because I just find myself too angry. Really it stresses you out, it affects your health, you can't sleep, and you go, what the f*** am I doing this?
So what?
But both those times I've realised those institutions are never going to change. That's the nature of big cities. There's always bureaucracies, so you have to just stick at it, develop the relationship you can, and also things change. Often the culture changes when people in senior positions change. So it's like any organisation, there's moments where the cultural attitude is better and the ambition is better and worse. So I'm not really that big a advocate for a systemic regulatory change. A lot can be achieved just with culture. Just being the rules already allow a lot. It's the application of the rules and just being a bit more visionary and less legalistic about it.
Yeah.
I think property development, the creative side of how we can build amazing new developments, has got caught up with a really practical issue that was in the regulation of the building code, which did cost the city billions of dollars in leaky building, and that conservativeness has crept over into the issuance of resource consents. There's a lot of scope to be a lot more ambitious in the consents that the council issues, non-notified, and they choose not. They take a very conservative view generally on that. So a lot of, I'm lucky enough that we're big enough to be taken seriously now, but it's still an issue there that creativity is dying because of
that is a
cultural attitude of the administration of the plan, not the actual rules. It's the administration of the plan that is really where a lot of the big problems arrive. It's about lack of ambition, which brings us back to that point of intent. What are we trying to achieve here together? Sorry, that was a bit long-winded.
No, that's okay, but it is, you're so spot on. I think it's about everything in life at the moment. It's actually having a bit more of an open mindset about things and looking at things in a different light, but actually not being so black and white and actually this is what we have to stick to because this is what the rules say.
Yeah.
Keeping everyone safe still, obviously, but actually just being a bit more freer in your thinking, really.
But it's a bit of it's not actually NIMBYism that's holding the city back. It's really cultural and regulatory issues that are holding the city back. There was a big debate for 5 years with the unitary plan that got passed without a whimper, and it removed all density controls, car parking standards, changed, 3/4 of the city's zoning was radically changed. The sky didn't fall down, communities weren't upright, it passed without a whimper after the 5 years of, hearings. And they say the problems are not really at the community level. There is localised, opposition here and there, but I think the biggest issues holding the city back are actually at the higher levels of administration and leadership, the various arms of council. It's just too much of a negative worldview. Too much emphasis is placed on legal defensibility rather than outcome. You've got to balance risk versus outcome and the ambition for the city. We had one head of regulatory that wore as a badge of honour that they hadn't had any, very few judicial reviews of their consents for the past 5 years. And I'm going, well, if you haven't had 50 judicial reviews, you haven't been pushing the boundaries far enough. It's my view, that is not a badge of honour to say very few of my consents have been challenged. Now that is not success. That actually represents failure. If you're issuing 1,000 consents a year, none of them are challenged. It means that you're not being ambitious enough for the city. That's the kind of thing that, as a community, we need to. We're in a COVID hangover. Let's just be a bit more optimistic. This is still one of the most beautiful cities in the world. There's a great culture here. There's so many positive things about Auckland. Pardon?
Is that what keeps moving you forward? Because it's so easy for you just to walk away. You've achieved a lot. Where do you balance the personal drive to keep moving forward and the contentment of actually I want to enjoy my life?
Well, the kind of that's part of my nature. I've always been, often say I do things out of spite or to prove things for people wrong that you can do. It's probably the thing I'm most proud of is that we've managed to build, I think, a really good portfolio of buildings, and we had to jump through the same financial and capital raising and regulatory hoops as everyone else, but yet our buildings do stand out in terms of the quality and the way they age and the general acceptance and well-likedness by the public.
We've just sold one of your first apartment blocks, haven't we, on Sandringham Road? Was that one of your first apartments?
That was our very first one.
Very first one. Yeah. And when I went to view it with Steve, I was like, wow, the space is all, as you say, it's about your first apartment block actually hit the nail on the head about community life, thriving in a community, being close to all of the public transport. But the actual living inside was spacious, it was beautiful, it was just like it was built yesterday, actually. So you have created something that is a long-term building for Auckland.
Yeah, that was one of our things, but I got the opportunity to get into the apartment game, and the 90s and the zeros were a period where high-density buildings weren't done particularly well. And that was, we set out to lead the industry. We wanted to build better buildings. We were genuine about it. We wanted our built form to match the city's majestic landscape. Why wouldn't it? And, it's not just Auckland. There's another handful of players as well. And I think the average apartment block completed in Auckland now in 2024 is, it's really good. The scourge of Auckland is terraced housing, as we've just discussed.
Moving along, I'm going to talk about partnerships because you have a great partnership with Benjamin Preston. Is it Benjamin Preston?
That's right,
Benjamin Preston. That's obviously stood the test of time. How do you balance out? You must sometimes, you've obviously got a shared vision, but you must have difference of opinions. And it's been 25 years with Benjamin? Or 20?
No, 15 years with Benjamin running Auckland.
15 years with Benjamin. That's a long time. That's like a marriage. So how do you balance out your different ideas if you're sort of really passionate or purposeful about something but Benjamin's not, and vice versa. How do you get through that?
It's been easy, actually. Benjamin's always been the financial partner of the business, and he's used to managing big organisations, being quite a senior exec in the banking field. So he's provided a lot of mentorship and sort of in that leadership space. But basically, he's a financial partner of Auckland, and because he's that type of person, he realised he doesn't, the big design and direction decisions are not really something that he wants to get involved in. So there's always been a clear delineation of who's responsible for it. It's not like we've got two cooks in the kitchen when it comes to a design and outcome. And he's also a very old friend of mine, so we've never really had any issues like that. Occasionally he'll encourage me to put more car parks in than I otherwise would, but aside from that, no, it's been easy.
So your relationship with Steve, so that's been 25 years. What attracted you? It's probably the wrong words to say what attracted you. What stood out for you from Steve that you actually thought, I actually would like to do some business with him?
Just his energy levels and trust. I like people that bring energy. You do need energy givers around you.
Yeah.
Because not everyone is. Steve's an energy giver. And he always said, what are you going to do, And he's always good for a laugh. But primarily it's just one of those people that give you energy.
Yeah.
Because, not everyone has got that capability, and that's okay. But those people that do, every business and organisation needs that. And he always felt like he had your back.
Yeah.
It's, delegation is really important, especially when you start a business that's vertically integrated. Like Auckland, we do all our design in-house, got our own architects, we've got our own project managers, got our own real estate arm, and we've got our own construction company, which is a key part of the business now. That's helped us build a huge amount of resiliency in Auckland. And when you can have an opinion on any part of the business, it's, again, in retrospect, you realise you should have been a bit more boundaried about what you poke your nose in, and let your professionals do each of their, trust them do their job properly, And Steve always, once they listed a property, I wouldn't have to worry about it.
Yeah. And Steve, what stood out for you for Mark? I mean, you have lots of people in your life, business-wise, but this relationship's been going on for 25 years.
Yeah.
So what stood out? What was the difference of Mark?
When I first met Mark, he was engaging, he was straight up, a man of his word, and I met Mark when I was door knocking, trying to get established, and Mark said, I like your energy, I'll give you a go. And that's what I wanted. I was hungry. So having that drive, having that passion. So that's how it just rolled from there. And then we formed this trust. And Mark would just go, here you go, get on with it. Just, So I'd be like a dog on a lead. I'd be off. But we established this friendship along with Carl, his brother who was involved, and his father, Lance. So it was a four-way relationship. And it just worked. And it was easy. And it's just continued. I mean, Mark's, once he established Auckland, it changed, obviously. You became a big player. And I've just kept on doing my own business. But we've always connected, and that trust, that belief in each other, and that willingness to just help each other's businesses has always been there.
Yeah.
Just easy.
Yeah, real estate's not an easy business.
Oh, really?
About it, it's so hard in your personal life. There's good money to be made in it, but it's bloody hard work. You have to make a lot of sacrifices that you've got to understand those trade-offs. To be a successful agent, you have to be available. You've got to be available weekends in particular. You've got to be available when everyone else is at home enjoying their families. It's a tough job being a top real estate agent, and I understand that now intimately and really appreciate it.
And thank you for sharing that. I agree. It is a tough job when you're out on the field all the time and you're 24/7. You're always tuned in thinking.
We're dealing with people. That's a high
dealing with
functioning.
people,
like when you've got whatever, 6 or 7 hours of people contact a day. That's exhausting.
Yeah.
You're trying to establish relationships with new people you've only just met. It's it's a high functioning job, but I understand that because I spend a lot of time talking to people. I used to.
I do understand. Well, I don't understand, but I think one of the great things with your relationship with Steve is that Steve is actually always thinking of you, because he'll always come and say, "Carolyn, what do you reckon about this for Mark? What do you think about this for Mark? Can we help Mark with this?" So you're always top of mind. So I think that's actually really something special in your relationship.
Well, Mark's always open to ideas, you know. Like sometimes with a vendor, well, you've got to be a bit guarded what you say. Well, we know each other, so I can just go, "Nah, I don't think that's the right path to take." Or I'll just throw ideas, and just like, for example, with your beautiful Manaaki development, just a couple of ideas. He'll take them on board. Whether Mark chooses to implement them, that's up to him. But it's all about trying to help sell the product.
You talked about the high pressure jobs that you're both in different ways, and being people facing a lot. How do you actually look after yourself? What do you do for time out? It's pretty hard to balance that sort of workplace.
Well, I love
Surfing?
spending time with my kids. Frank and Rose are awesome. Frank's just finished high school. He's off to uni next year. He's actually on a construction site right now, and my daughter Rose heading into the 5th form next year, or year 11. So they're a big focus to me. I've always made myself available, after school for pickups right throughout their childhoods. But my big love's the ocean. I've got a little holiday house at Kerikeri I've had for 25 years. Just south of Piha, for those that don't know the West Coast that well, and I'm out on the harbour 2 or 3 times a week foiling now. Everyone's got into foiling.
Not me.
So,
Not
I've
yet.
transitioned to that. Takes a bit less time than driving out for a surf and surfing. So
Is it a bit more dangerous?
no, it's not dangerous at all, really. It's just a bit of a knack. I've been windsurfing since I was 13 as well. It's anything to do with the ocean, and that's my happy space. When you're out in the ocean, you never think about work.
Yeah.
And that's my big stress relief, is the ocean. Always has been, always will be, I think.
And Steve, you've got a very busy family life, hugely busy family life, hugely busy work life. How do you and you like to keep fit. How do you balance out all of that, keep some time for you?
Fitness has got to be early. I don't have the leisure of being able to take a day off. I'm getting there, but at the moment I've got to get up early and exercise. So I've been road cycling for 15 plus years. So that's what I do. I've got a really good bunch of mates, and we meet at 5:30 in the morning, and I'll do that. Try to do it 4 days a week, and that's my time, just like you foiling. And then when I come home, real estate mode. But I've got one of the kids on the phone. I've got 4 kids, as you know, Mark. They're all grown up, but we've got that relationship, and we're always communicating. My phone's been buzzing, and I bet you it's work, and I'll probably have a message from one of my kids. We're always talking, we're doing stuff together, and I love it. Mark and I are similar, family first, and it's a lovely trait to have. Everything you're doing is for your own benefit, but you've always got your kids in mind and the betterment of the family.
One of the things I know about you personally, Steve, is that you actually find it relaxing to cook and create food and share that food with people. So tell us a little bit about that. What's driven you to...
Well, probably what started me was when I started with Barfoot and you were the manager. Just realised you couldn't cook to save yourself. So I've always... Well, you think about it. It's one of the most enjoyable things to sit down with family and friends and share a meal and have a conversation, and it just evolves.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be elaborate, but tasty. So when I come home, I might crack a beer and I'll cook in the kitchen, and that's my stress release. And then we sit down and enjoy it. So it sort of evolved from there. I'm no master chef, but it's just something I do enjoy. And so I enjoy hosting and catching up with people. And I like, if I've got excess, I'd love to give it to people that I care about.
Are you good in the kitchen as well, Mark?
My kids are healthy.
You can
So
cook.
I enjoy cooking. And,
Yeah.
I've got modest cooking skills.
Okay, we're getting close to the end, guys. I know time's precious. Memorable moments. There must be some memorable moment that you've both shared. And if so, can you share that with the audience?
Ooh. It's always work. We back in the day we mixed work and a lot of social fun too. So when we sold down a small project to yours, we'd go out, whether it was going to a restaurant or whatever, getting out on the water. We tried to do something like that. But the most memorable project I was selling was this development in Wilkinson Road in Ellerslie, and how many apartments were in that
Eight
block?
3-bedrooms.
Yeah. So they're all up for sale individually. And this gentleman came to the open home, handed me his business card, and he said, "Call me," and off he walked. So I gave him a buzz when we finished the open home, and he said, "I want to buy the lot." And I went, "Oh, okay." Really? Fortunately, we hadn't sold any. So I rang up Mark and I said, "I've got a guy who wants to buy the whole lot." Mark went, "Hell yeah." So we ended up in this long negotiation. It was for the Chinese consulate. So we ended up going to their head office in Green Lane, and we sat down for this formal discussions. And I've never drunk so much green tea in my life. We have a sip, it'll be topped up. Have a sip, topped up. We concluded the negotiation. Mark was very generous. He said, "Look, I want to leave a bit of fat in it. A bit of a win-win for them and for me. It's good for your business model." And then they flew a delegation over. Do you recall?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And these delegates came, and we had to go there, and it was all official with the photographer. We all had to stand there. We signed it off. You signed the contract. And Mark said, "We'd like to take you out to celebrate." And Mark wanted to take them to his beach property, Karikari. So we arranged cars. It was Saturday. They all came,
Really?
Yeah, they all came beautifully dressed. And here we were in jeans and T-shirts. We're manning the barbecue. They rocked up the gravel driveway to your little batch up there. It's really nondescript. It's lovely.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they expected that. And they got out, and we just fired up. We were cooking steaks, and we had crayfish, beautiful Kiwi cuisine. I don't even know what they sat on. Probably just camp chairs.
Yeah.
But they thoroughly enjoyed it and embraced
Oh, they would
it.
have.
Yeah, so it was so different from going to a restaurant. It was just Kiwiana. And it was just genuine. And so I always remember that. I loved it.
That's reflective of you both, of actually always going the extra mile, doing something different. Yeah, that's incredible.
Well, Mark's really relatable. And look, highly successful, but, family driven. You care about people.
Do
And
my
you-
best.
Well, you do. So essentially, that's symbiotic. So we've got similar traits there.
You do.
And as I say, it just works. And we have fun.
You definitely have fun. What's next for Ockham?
Keeping on building a better world. We're getting. It's hard work doing what we do. It's it requires a lot of energy, because you are fighting a lot of battles on a lot of fronts generally. And construction hasn't been easy, particularly the last 6 or 7 years. Everything's been overcooked. It's hard to get resource, skilled labour, materials, cost escalation. But I just firmly believe, where do you want to live in the world? I'd like to kind of finish on just making a case for, what continent would you want to live on? North
Yeah.
America, it's got its, own set of issues. It's got its own set of inequality problems. South America, there's plenty of countries in South America we've got a lot of immigrants coming from for their own political problems down there. Do you want to live in Africa? Asia, there's a lot of military and economic tensions in Asia are looking to the next generation. well, clearly where you want to live is Australasia. Let's not split hairs if it's better in Sydney or Melbourne or Auckland. We're very blessed and privileged to live in such a wonderful country. Yeah, there's a bit of a zeitgeist thing going on, like you want to, we just want to do our bit, which is to build the best buildings we can. I've just handed over my business, my chief executive, Will Deal. He's an owner of Auckland now as well. He's taken over the day-to-day operations of the business, and we're actually getting more ambitious as we stay in the game, not less. We only want to do the best buildings we can. That's where we've got to. It's too much energy not to do the best buildings we can. So we still want to lead and ultimately be copied, and contribute that way. That's always been a goal for us to lead, and we'll share any information with anybody. We can't build every building in Auckland, in fact very few, but the ones we do, we want to be exceptional and the best we possibly can. The real key to building a quality compact city is for the public to understand what a good building looks like. And as soon as the public understand what good looks like, they won't accept things that aren't good. And at the moment we've got, too much middling, easy housing to build that is kind of accepted because that's what the public's conditioned to. So we see our role as showing what great high density living looks like, so that the public understands that and then demands that from the sector as a whole. So that's pretty exciting for us, just to continue our leadership role and double down on doing the best buildings we can and building the best communities we can.
What's next for Mr. Hood?
Oh, that's a tricky one. Well, I'm not going to give up anytime soon. I've got more to give, and I think a bit like Mark taking on Will, I've now got a business partner, and I think it's all very well having your business model and wanting to keep on working, but at the same time you've got to have that life balance. I think it's really important to be able to take time out, and I've never really been able to do it because, as you said before, Mark, real estate is totally consuming. It is. For 25 years I've just smashed it hard. I've always taken breaks for the family. I mean, back when we were selling big time, I'd take 12 weeks off a year holiday. It was always the school holidays because that was precious. That's when we had time away at the beach, being with the kids, having fun and laughing. But now they're all grown up, I'm wanting to still have that time. So by having a partner, I can take a step back and smell the roses and start doing things which I've not been able to because of real estate. So
and be fresh.
Got to stay fresh.
Yeah.
Got to be top of your game, otherwise, fade away.
I'm going to close a conversation and go out with some thanks. I'm going to read your vision because you know it inside and out, and I can hear that you live and breathe it. And not many people can do that. They can write some words on a piece of paper and think, there you go, I've done that, tick box. But you can hear, can't you, Steve, from this conversation, obviously you know Mark well, that you do live and breathe this. So I'm going to close on this, and I actually want to say thank you on behalf of Aucklanders, because I am an Aucklander, for your continued inspiration, creativity, pushing the boundaries and thinking long term for us, and having that open mindset to be different and that we can all be better. So do you know Mark's vision?
Yeah, I read it.
Okay, it's to make beautiful buildings that people love to live in, and you've certainly done that. Homes that honour this dynamic Pacific city, and your passion for New Zealand, for Australasia is really evident. It stands the test of time and inspires others. And again, this conversation has talked about your buildings that have stood the test of time, and that you're here to help anyone else and to be an inspiration, but to actually guide them as well to be the best they can be in building. And bring an awesome Auckland lifestyle to as many people and communities as we can. And I can really sort of feel, or I can hear the waves coming on that, and that what your lifestyle of Auckland's all about. And it's about the ocean. And so thank you. As I said, it's really nice to actually read that vision, but for it to actually mean more than just the words on the piece of paper. So I appreciate that you've shared that with us today.
Thank you, Carolyn. I appreciate your time too, and good luck with your podcast.
Thank you. And Steve, thank you. Always supporting of Barfin and Thompson Remuera, and very supporting of me, so I always appreciate that.
A worthy cause.
That's it. It's a wrap.